Welcome everybody, episode 53 of Martinis with Scott. Today we're going to talk about extended shutdowns because of COVID-19, cash flow management, having corporate meetings in a crisis, and let's dive right into it. So Trump in the US announced, I think it was yesterday, that they're amending their isolation guidelines from mid-April to the end of April, April 30th, I believe is what they said. And so that's an extension of 2 weeks. Businesses are going to be shut down longer. I listened to Bill Gates, I think on a CNN interview yesterday, who was suggesting that he's in favor of by the way, he's done a deep dive into this. Obviously, we know his math skills are exceptional, but he's done a deep dive into this virus. So he knows what's going on. He knows what he's talking about. I kind of wouldn't want to be on the other side of arguing with him on this particular issue or any issue for that matter. He's suggesting he's in favor of a hard shutdown, as we are doing for another 6 to 10 weeks is his estimation, which of course takes you past the April 30th target presented by the US government, by Trump, which would be 4 weeks from today, and more or less. And so Gates is arguing for 2 weeks to 6 weeks longer than that. So that would take you to the end of May or even into early June, which I've been on a couple of calls this morning, and that's what some business people are counting on. So that's a long time for now. It's longer than we thought it was going to be 2 weeks ago when we were targeting, as I said, mid-April. So I think as a business owner perspective, you're shut down or you're running at half of your capacity or you're on a skeleton staff. Let's revisit some of the things that we've talked about in this crisis in terms of managing your business and whether you can afford to get through this. Are you a troubled company? Can you afford to be shut down for whatever period of time you believe you're going to be shut down, listening to either the US government's guidance, Bill Gates' guidance, which is longer, your own gut feel or your own research on this issue? Pick a date. Are you a troubled company? Well, how do you know that? You know that, we discussed this before, is create a cash flow model. Create a rolling 13-week cash flow model. There's templates on sinclairrange.com, sinclairrange.com. Search it, 13-week model. There's free templates there. We've done Olga Jelani, who's a frequent guest on the show when we weren't self-isolating. She's walked through and explained how these models work. But conceptually, it's very easy. It's cash in, cash out. And what are cash in? Cash in is collections from your accounts receivable. It's cash sales to the extent that you're doing that. Government subsidies, cash in. Anything that brings cash into your business. And what is cash out? Cash out is obvious. It's the bills that you pay. It's your employees. It's your rent. It's your utilities. It's your suppliers. It's your taxes. All of those things, right? Cash in, cash out. That's what a cash flow model is. And then, you project it week by week by week by week out for 13 weeks. Why 13 weeks? That's just a rule of thumb. In the insolvency business, it's 13 weeks is 3 months. And that's what you do. You do 13-week models. So you build yourself one of those. Either get a template from our site or go back and listen to an old episode, figure out how to do it, or just do it yourself. Cash in, cash out. What's your bottom line, right? So if you brought in $1,000 this week and you paid out $1,200 this week and your opening balance was zero, well, then your ending balance is minus 200, right? Simple as that. So you do that and you do it for your 13 weeks, or if you think we're going to be shut down longer, do it for longer. And what I advise people to do, what we do when we walk into troubled situations, is we say, okay, if we think this is going to be closed 4 weeks, as Trump suggests, then double it. Do your model assuming that you're shut down for 8 weeks, okay? If you think it's going to be shut down longer, 6 to 10 weeks, then do your model out 12 to 20 weeks, which now is beyond a 13-week cash flow, so you can just extend out your spreadsheet. It takes you about 2 minutes to do that on an Excel spreadsheet. And what you, you double it because things never go as planned, and you double it because we're not going to come back, you're not going to go from 0 to 100. You run a gym. You rely on a bunch of daily walk-ins as opposed to subscriptions for your cash flow, to monthly fees for your cash flow. So you have a bunch of walk-in and daily revenue. Well, people aren't going to be banned from the gym, and then on Monday when things are changed, and the government says we don't have to isolate anymore, you're not going to go back to full capacity, right? It's going to take months potentially for that to grow up and for your revenue to come back. So just as a rule of thumb, if you think it's going to be a 4-week issue, a 6-week issue, just double that in your cash flow, and then don't build it up to here. If you're on the podcast, I'm raising my hands all over the place. Don't build it up to 100% all at once. Gradually increase your cash inflow and in your model to see where you're at. And so you've done that with your cash flow model. And if you're out of cash, if you run out of cash during this thing, you're in trouble, right? That's what a troubled company is. You run out of cash during this period, and now you need to make some decisions as to what you're going to do about that. So what do you do if you are short on cash? The number one thing you need to be asking yourself at this point in this crisis, I mean, we're weeks into this now, excuse me, into social, that's not the virus, by the way, as I say every episode, is you need to ask yourself, why are you open, right? Should you just, if you're losing money every day and you can't afford to lose money every day, are you better off shutting down? And if you do, what does shutting down mean? Does that mean completely shutting down? Or does it mean partially shutting down? I was on a call this morning with I won't drop their name, but a significant restaurateur out of Miami. And I was on a Zoom call with them on location. They were in the restaurant. And what they've done is they've gone to a skeleton staff. So all of their hourly people have been laid off, but they kept the salary people on so they could still prepare food. And the salary people are doing deliveries. So they're getting food out into Miami. And if I had his permission, I would drop the name of the restaurant just as a promo. But, so they haven't shut down completely. They've gone to a skeleton staff. And in my little town here in the mountains in Western Canada, almost not every restaurant, but if there's, we're a town of 4,000 people. It's not very big. But there's probably 10 good restaurants in town. There's much more than that, really, but about 10 high-end restaurants, and I bet you 6 or 8 of them are still open, doing takeout and delivery. So what does shutdown mean? But the point of the story from a cash flow perspective is, why are you even open if you're losing money? Look, at your primary concern in this crisis is your employees, their health, and can they afford to live and eat groceries and pay their rent, pay their mortgage? Well, you're tempted to keep employees on as long as possible, isolated as much as you can, because you want them to have a paycheck. That's no longer really an issue. In every jurisdiction that I know of, there's lots of government support and programs to help people that have been laid off because of this virus. If you're losing money, you're not the government. You can't afford to continue and do this out of your pocket because you're going to go under, right? You've proved that in your cash flow model. You're going to go under. Maybe you should consider laying these people off, having the government help you. That's what the government is for in a crisis of this sort. I'm not normally into government programs like this, but this is the perfect situation for relying on the government. So think about laying people off because your primary concern is your employees' welfare, and laying them off does not impact their cash flow because in every jurisdiction there's a bunch of government programs that is there to help them. Your second concern is to maintain the value of your business, to keep the momentum that you have in your business. I did a show last Friday about momentum. It's everything in business, but there's lots of things that you can be doing while you are shut down. And while your employees are laid off, but there's lots of things you can be doing to maintain the momentum of your business, to keep heading towards your aim, towards your goals. What are some of those things that I've talked about before? You can rewrite your business plans. You can rethink your strategic plans. You can, redo your website, which is out of date, and you can turn it into a dynamic platform. You can hone in on your online sales strategy, your B2C. That needs to be better than it is. You can get through of all that administrative stuff that's going to come back and bite you in the ass because you haven't been doing it, because you've been too busy on the day-to-day, and the list goes on and on. There's a million things you can do so that 8 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, 12 weeks from now, whatever it is that you decide you're going to be out, there's a million things that you can do to come back stronger and better than your competition, because I promise you, Your competition is frozen. They're frozen with fear, uncertainty. Don't be that. You can shut down and still beat your competition, and you ought to be thinking about that. Okay, if you're going to stay open or if you're on a skeleton staff, regardless of what you're doing, remember, cash in, cash out. Look for government help. There's lots of programs out there now. Not all of them are effective. It's hard to know what's, how to apply for some of these things. And, is it going to come today or is it going to become 6 weeks from now, which is way too late? So there's all sorts of questions, but obviously you want to do a deep dive into government programs. By the way, I'm hoping to set up a Zoom Martinis with Scott show with a couple of lawyers, one in Canada, one in the US, to review programs that are available from the various governments and how to go about them. I thought that would be helpful for the audience here and for business owners. So we'll see if we get that set up this week. Government programs, obviously you want to collect your receivables. We talked about this before. You could offer discounts to get it in quicker. You could factor your receivables, go sell them to a finance company. Look for other revenue sources, other revenue sources. If you're a restaurant, online sales, takeout, delivery, that sort of stuff. On the cash out side, stop paying people. Just stop. No one's going to sue you in this environment. You're not going to get in serious trouble. Your employees you can lay off and you can cut that expense. You could stop paying your suppliers. You don't have to be nasty about it. You can call them one by one. You can say, look, we're stuck. We're going to run out of money. We're unable to pay right now. And so I need to restructure this debt. And I don't even know what the answer is. We're just going to take a holiday for a month and get back to you. Holiday from payments for a month. There's all sorts of ways you can go about a supplier restructuring informally. And I believe I've done shows on that before, but I think it's reminding me that I ought to do one this week of the details of an unsecured voluntary restructuring. Negotiate with your landlord. Can you get a rent holiday? I'm dealing with one of our commercial tenants right now. We're having that same discussion. Most taxing authorities have said there's a holiday on tax payments. Take advantage of that. I haven't seen anybody give a holiday on utilities, electricity or natural gas yet, but surely that should be coming out of the municipalities or the counties, whatever the authority is for that in your region. So keep an eye out for that. And remember, so you can cut all these things down to basically zero for a period of time, and then you don't have a cash flow problem anymore. So be aggressive. Don't think you need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You don't. These are unusual times, and being a leader in a crisis calls for making tough decisions, including not paying people if you don't have the money to pay people. What good does it do your employees and your suppliers if you just drive yourself into bankruptcy in the next 3 weeks and you never come back? Was that a good solution? Probably not, right? So stop paying, conserve your cash, build a war chest. Now, in your model, in your financial model, in your cash flow model, you need to remember this is not a grant. It's not a gift. Very few governments are giving grants. You need to pay this money back. If you didn't pay your suppliers, you still owe them, right? So when you get back to business, you owe them. It's like a loan. If you didn't pay your landlord, you still owe the rent when things go back to normal. It's like a loan. So you need to build in how are you going to afford to pay back these loans over what period of time when things normalize. Okay, so that's about how to identify whether you're a troubled company or not as this crisis drags on, how to manage your cash flow as this cash flow drags on. Now I want to talk about corporate meetings in a cash flow because I've been through a couple in the past week and it's very much the same. And I think that general meetings among employees, let's say you're a manufacturing company, you have your weekly meeting and you talk about everything that happened last week and what we need to do and so on and so forth. That doesn't work in a crisis because although communication in a crisis is obviously super important, more so than at any other time, but what is it that you're communicating? You can't talk every day about the negative. You can't go into work every single day or in a weekly meeting for 2 hours and talk about the coronavirus. You just can't do it. It's too hard. It's too negative. It's too demotivating. What you need to do is focus on the positives and forget about yesterday. Focus on today. Focus on positive things that you need to do to maintain your momentum, move you towards your objective, towards your aims, and forget about yesterday. Sorry, I'm just going to turn the volume off on this thing beeping. People are texting me the number of subscribers we have on the YouTube channel, which is not very many, but it's going up every day, which is why they're texting me with excitement about that. All right, where was I? So your meetings need to not be about the negatives. Negatives, when you have too much of this in corporate meetings and you're trying to affect change, create uncertainty and depression, and it's paralyzing, okay? And it's also tyrant. Like, think about you getting up every day during this crisis. Do you turn on CNN? Do you read the news and watch it for 2-3 hours a day and just get bombarded and hit over and over with how bad things are and that we're all gonna die? What does that do to your psyche? Are you then coming out of that productive and charged up and ready to go? No, exactly the opposite, right? And it's the same with corporate meetings. So here's what you do. You forget about what happened yesterday. You forget about everything you screwed up this week. You forget about everything you screwed up last week. You forget about how much you suck at this, that, and the other thing. You forget about what this virus is doing to your business. And you have a short daily meeting that focuses on what you're doing today and how you can work together to be successful at your task for today. Pretend you're the coach. You're the coach of an NHL hockey team. Easy for me to draw that analogy because I played the sport and I'm Canadian. Think about it as basketball, football, whatever. So every day in a crisis is game day. Every single day. It's not practice. It's not tape day. Every day is game day. Does the coach of the team get up to get you motivated for a game and tell you how much you sucked the last game? No. They talk about, here's what we need to do today. This is how we're going to win. Here's how we need to work together. You know, our defense has been shoddy. Wingers skate back, you know, help out your goalie, get the puck out, you know, whatever it is, you focus on what is important today to move forward, and you do it for a really short period of time. So 15 minutes is the answer, in my opinion, but this is not a 1 hour drag on, go through a laundry list of stuff. People should walk out of the meeting charged up and know the 1, 2, 3, no more than the 3 things. They know the 1, 2, 3 things in their head that they have to accomplish today as a team. And you need to do that every single day. And that's what a crisis management meeting should be about. It should not be about everything that's negative. We all know that, okay? And when I say charged up and positive, it takes you towards your mission. Like, you can talk about today, we need to be really careful about the coronavirus and the isolation, and so here's a new sanitation procedure that we have. That could be something, but it's proactive, it's positive, it's not just a negative droning on for an hour or 2 hours that's wasting everybody's time and making them leave the meeting feeling drained and unmotivated. Okay, you think about politics, you think about wartime, including a war against this virus. What do you see? You see daily briefings. And do you see daily briefings about how many people died yesterday and about everything else that's going wrong? No. You say daily briefings about, hey, the curve is starting to flatten. We're getting more testing. Here's what we're doing to get ventilators to New York, right? You see all of these positive assertive statements. And what we need from your help, Mr. Public, Ms. Public, is to continue to self-isolate. And we're estimating this time frame, right? Those are proactive things that make people feel, okay, we're on top of this. And that's what you need to do in your business on a crisis. So I was doing a turnaround of a manufacturing entity, started in late 2018, and I was finished by 2019. And when I stepped in there, I see this in every single, in most troubled companies that have a sophisticated, really smart management team that are not experienced and are not adept to dealing with a crisis. And what they do is they start to micromanage, and you walk in and it's 2 hours, could be daily, like it's just incredible periods of time. You have a spreadsheet of to-do lists, like who did this, who did that. Names are beside the spreadsheet. Dates, or timelines are beside the names on the spreadsheet. And, often they're color-coded right? And it's like their full-time job. It's somebody's full-time job to maintain this spreadsheet. And it just becomes a job in and of itself to come in and report that you didn't do the thing that you're supposed to do yesterday because you were too busy or it was unrealistic, or management's not dealing with the root of the crisis. They're dealing with a micromanagement that isn't working. I faced this at this turnaround company last year that I was on for a year, and that's exactly what they were doing. We just stopped talking about all those negative things from the past. We stopped talking about how bad we are, and we started a daily 15-minute meeting. Everybody senior in operations. When I say senior, I mean I brought in my VP Ops, my plant manager, all the supervisors, material handlers, people sort of that had somebody else that they had to manage. We brought them all in. It was stand up as much as possible. It was 15 minutes. It was the beginning of the day, and we said, what are we doing today? And people would say, well, we got this delivery arriving. We need to get, this line is running. We need to get this many cases out, so on and so forth. And somebody else, and the maintenance guy would say, well, I got that line shut down, right, for whatever. And you force communication, and everybody walks out knowing what they're doing for the day, and then you do the same thing tomorrow. And if you screwed up yesterday, forget about it. It's not important. You can't change it. Change what's going forward, get people in line, and it's just highly effective. That's what you do in a crisis. That's a way to manage. Don't waste your time in these long, unproductive meetings that demotivate everybody, especially me. All right, I'm just going to tell you that I get the sense, new topic for 30 seconds here. Today's the day. Everybody's going back to work. The phone has started ringing. Everything's been silent for 2-3 weeks here. We've been really busy at Sinclair Range on a number of things, but the outside world hasn't been calling in other than talk about the virus and just generally keep touching base. But today, people are starting to work. They're looking for money. They're looking to restructure. They're looking for advice. They're looking to sell. They're looking to buy. Today's the day. What's happening? My sense is the world is just saying, okay, this is the new normal, at least for a while. Let's get at it. My advice to you, don't miss the boat. You're a business owner, you're a manager. Don't sit around, feel sorry for yourself. Don't be paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Get back to work. All right, exciting news at Martinis with Scott. We got new hats in. Martinis with Scott, if you're on the podcast, you can't see this, but this is a nice gray hat. Thanks to Ashley for getting these things organized. I'll tell you what, if you want a hat, send in your name and contact information. Somehow you can do it in the comments on YouTube. You can email us, phone us. I think my number's in there somewhere. Get a hold of Ashley. And we'll give you a couple of days to do that. Say Monday, so Wednesday. Do it Wednesday by end of day. And we'll pick 3 names randomly from that. And if we could ship it to you, make sure that we send us your address as well, or your general area. So we can decide whether we can even ship it to you, and we'll send you out some hats if you want. What else do I have? That's it. Thank you. Have a great Monday. Stay healthy. Get back to work. You can be a success during this period. This has been a Martinis with Scott. We're a show about winning at business for entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, investors. Please subscribe. We're on YouTube. Search Martinis with Scott. Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks for listening.